ask me 3 questions about what I do when I talk about TIP. And I thought tonight maybe I would take time to answer those 3 questions, because there's probably a lot of people here that don't know about TIP. But 3 seems to be the magic number, because 3 was the questions I got asked when I was pregnant over and over again. All you moms out there know what they are. What do you do? Is it a boy or girl? And what are you going to name him? For me, the first question I get asked a lot is, how did you find yourself in this position doing what you do? And that's easy. As a little girl growing up in Minnesota, I wish I could tell you that I always dreamed of providing critical, emotional first aid to people in crisis. So I went to college, got my degree in psychology. I went to grad school, got my degree in crisis management, and then I wrote my PhD thesis on successful interplay amongst first responders and citizen volunteers in a multicultural context. And that's totally a lie. If anything, I'm describing our oldest daughter, Jessica, who knew right away what her life plan was. She was going to law school, work for the government, become a federal prosecutor, probably from the time she could read and write. We do share one thing in common. In our family, we all knew that our purpose was to serve others, to be there for them. So, for me, when I really think about what drives TIP volunteers, what motivates me, like a lot of things in life, it goes back to Girl Scouts. See, I can talk about situations and policies and a lot of things and relate it to Girl Scouts. Because see, scouting is so much more than selling cookies. As I had my journey in Scouts all the way to having my own troop, I learned a lot of things. I learned about communication and networking and entrepreneurship and first aid and even the great outdoors. And about the time that I was a cadet, we had a girl in our troop whose younger brother suffered a horrible tragedy. When going through the car wash with his mom, he opened the door and stepped out, and his foot got entwined in that conveyor belt that pulls your car through. He lost his leg at age 8. And our troop gathered around and cared for this large family. We cooked and cleaned and made blankets and get well cards and read to him and sat with him in that long recovery time. In TIP, we call that showing up. Even when you can't fix it, you can be human. So I went off to college, met a guy that stole my heart, had a couple jobs, but they didn't really take my whole passion. Then I married that cute guy that stole my heart. We raised a family together, and he became a detective. So when I think about all those things that drive us, if you're somebody that's sitting here tonight wondering if you're on the right path, what your passion is, say, be patient, it'll come. For me, that call came, as it does for every TIP volunteer, and we answered that call to service, and we entered the TIP Training Academy. So I entered that academy, and I learned all about emotional first aid. And then I went on my first call. It was a natural death. You see, crisis doesn't have to be big and traumatic to affect the whole community. Sometimes it's what we call a daily disaster. Like this 91-year-old man that I went to assist when his wife died in her sleep. We were waiting for his son to get there, who was about 3 hours away. And I helped this man just get organized, make a list of all of the dreaded phone calls he needed to make, gather his papers together. He even went and picked out a dress that he knew his wife wanted to be buried in. Mostly I just listened to him, share about their life together. And when his adult son got in that door and ran in, he was so grateful that his dad wasn't alone. But what I remember about that call is how this man came up to me when I was ready to leave, put his arm around me, and said, I always knew when my wife died, there'd be an angel to take her to heaven. I just didn't know there'd be one at my side too. I found my place. He called me an angel. Now I knew my passion was on fire. I knew I had found a place where I could thrive, where everything would make sense. And that's let me say, when When people come into the training academy, they bring all sorts of life skills and their own personal experience. I meet scores of volunteers every year that bring all of this to us. For me, my favorite part of TIP is doing the training academies, because every single time I inevitably get to learn something about myself and about the people in front of us. So that's how I got here tonight, standing in front of you, talking about TIP, celebrating 30 years, and asking for money. The second thing I get asked all the time is, what do you say when? When a child dies, when a tragic accident leaves somebody paralyzed, when an infant dies, that moment of a car crash, when everything that seems so important just disappears because life has changed. Everything is different now when somebody dies by suicide. I get what to say when, and I get that because we're all a little bit scared of being out of control and not knowing what's going to happen. I think what people really want when they ask me, what do I say when, really is, what shouldn't I say? So let me put you at ease a little bit. When something bad happens to somebody you care about, you're not really that important. There are some phrases that you should stay away from, but you're not going to break somebody by sticking your foot in your mouth. The way you are most likely to hurt somebody is by not showing up at all. Because 99% of helping is showing up and being there. And that's what we train our TIP volunteers to do. When you walk into somebody's life at that chaotic, unorganized, when their life has been upended, sometimes the best thing you can do is the laundry or the dishes, or get them something to eat or a glass of water, or simply sit with them and hold their hand and reassure them that it's standard operating procedure for a police report to be taken when an infant dies. So, I know you want some practical skills, so don't say it'll be okay, because it's already not okay. And when we say everything will be okay, we not only minimize the event that happened, but we give people a false sense of control. And I get that, because none of us want to believe that we don't have control of that situation. A lot of well-meaning people say, I know how you feel, but you don't. You know how you felt in a similar situation. That doesn't mean that life experience isn't beneficial and helpful. I longed to speak to other parents who had lost a child when I was processing Nick's death. Most of the time, when people are processing grief, they really don't want tips on how to handle it. What they want is a temperature check. Am I crazy? Am I always going to feel like this? Is this normal? So we show up. When the world's been turned upside down and people are left alone, that's when TIP shows up, and TIP is there. So I know you wanted those tips, so here's my 3 decades of experience boiled down into 3 words. I am here. That's it. Show up, say those words, and then get to work. Be there for somebody. Hold their hand, give them some water, offer them some food that we'll probably only half eat. But showing up is what makes all the difference in the world. The third question I get asked is, how can I help? And this is the famous time, talent, and treasure talk. Maybe you've been inspired tonight to become a volunteer yourself. We need you. You can find all the information about our next training academy on our website with the dates and all the requirements. Sign up. We would love to have you join us. Maybe you're somebody that has a lot of connections and you'd like to open doors. We need your talent. Be an advocate, share our story, make connections. Help us survive another 30 years. We even are looking for another board member right now. Maybe you're somebody who really believes in our mission, but there's no way you want to be one of those people going out on call. You want to donate your treasure. We need you too. We need you more than anything. We've survived and thrived now for 30 years, and we want to make sure we keep going another 30. We're getting busier and busier on calls, congregate housing, schools, businesses, violence on the streets, natural deaths. We need to train more volunteers. We need to keep our volunteers up to date with resources and equipment. But most of all, the number one thing we're here today is to raise enough money to hire another person, to add to our 4-person staff. If you heard that right, all this magic happens with only 4 people, and we need help. So I'm here to tell you, as I wrap this up, that TIP is present and helps you to remember to breathe, to put one foot in front of the other. I know in the moments and the days after Nick died, my husband Greg had a piece of paper in his wallet with a list of things he needed to remember every day, and the top of that list was breathe, because we forget to breathe and we hold our breath. So we're TIP on the worst day of your life, when it's been turned upside down, when you're feeling all alone. Somebody will show up and help you. We are teens and parents and grandparents. We're Catholics and Muslim and Jewish and evangelicals and non-believers. We're doctors and nurses and mechanics and teachers and stay-at-home mom and dads, and we're service people in the military. We're there when crisis happens, at your side. I hope, if crisis touches your life, that you have a TIP volunteer at your side. I hope when it does, that TIP volunteer reminds you to breathe and that you're not alone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so powerful. It's Miss Patty.